Hello everyone and welcome to another video here on the Cycling Dane Extra channel. If you're listening on the Cycling Dane podcast, today is another episode of cycling transfer talks, and we're bringing back one of our favorites, and that is of course Ewan Wilson, now of Cyclist magazine, but yeah, available at all good retailers. Is that how you say it?
I guess so. I mean, this issue actually does feature the Cycling Dane's very own Scott Nielsen.
Oh,
Here we go. There we go. Just some lovely pictures of us rolling through Italy. So you can go pick up an issue at your local newsagents, I guess. That works.
there's even one here in France, so you can get cyclists everywhere, apparently, even in Turkey. But I mean, transfer season is well and truly underway. Obviously, 1st of August is when it can all be released. But the big story that we're starting with, the never-ending saga, seems to be this one all the time. Remco Evenepoel, new story. Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe mentioned, but I mean, what is the new chapter that makes this more intriguing now?
Well, he's been linked to Ineos, IPT, Visma Lease Bike as part of that merger, remember, a couple of years back. But now it looks like we have finally our answer settled upon. It looks like Remco Evenepoel will be moving to Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe from 2026. The news of this broke at the beginning of the Tour de France. So the transfer guru Daniel Benson, former editor-in-chief at GCM when they had a news website, he posted on his Substack that this deal was 70 to 80% near completion. That then soon sort of, let the can of worms explode all over that first week of the Tour de France. Remco Evenepoel under the spotlight, as were his team. Patrick Lefevre, the outgoing boss of Soudal Quickstep, saying that he might even take legal action if this were true. Remco Evenepoel in the rest day saying he can't comment on it, but of course there's something there. And that has suddenly accelerated in the past 2 weeks. We now believe that this deal is near completion. There's a couple of sort of, points to be ironed out. Giro Scognomilio of Gazzetta dello Sport says it can be considered a done deal. However, Daniel Benson, who broke the initial story, says that some things still need to be signed off, particularly from the third party. That third party will be Soudal Quickstep. As you may know, Remco Evenepoel is still on a contract until 2026, the end of next year with Soudal Quickstep. However, there is a bit of a loophole in Belgian employment law, which states that Remco Evenepoel could break this contract if a fee is negotiated. That fee has turned out to be €2 million, according to several sources, and Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe seem willing to sort of front that bill to get Evenepoel across to their team at the beginning of next year. Along with Evenepoel moving across, which I mean can't really be confirmed until this time next week, his former sort of team boss at the Belgian national team, Sven van Turnhout, he is also moving across to that squad. Mattia Catania as well, close domestique of Remco Evenepoel as well, is strongly linked to Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe. So we're starting to believe that this will be a reality as rumours seem to pick up. There is a real consensus now that it is all but confirmed on the Evenepoel Red Bull front.
Didn't he deny it? I thought I saw a quote where he was saying he was denying that this was happening, Remco Evenepoel, but I mean,
you kind of have to deny it to some extent, unless you're Dylan van Baarle and you go on a podcast and talk about it. We'll get to that later on. But I mean, you can't really confirm anything until August 1st. And I think as well, because there are lots of things that need to be ironed out here in terms of buyout clause, in terms of breaking that contract, which can be done, by the way, then, you can't really say too much. I think, this also comes at quite a turning point in the Soudal Quickstep sort of timeline. The team is changing management. Patrick Year, there'll be a new CEO next year. That seems to have really changed the team dynamic with sort of stalwarts of the team looking to move away. We also have Specialized rumored to be, potentially on the way out. That was a really, really strong sort of commercial contract they have had for a long time. Also includes the women's team, AG Insurance Soudal, which have this sort of informal but sort of familial tie with the squad on a sponsor basis. So, this does feel like the right time for this to happen. And Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe is a team that have big ambitions. They have a team budget that's rumored to be towards a €50 million marker, which is, the upper ceiling of pro cycling teams, similar to Visma, UAE, and Ineos Grenadiers. They could also, front that bill on this front. They want to win the Tour de France in the coming years. They're getting closer. I guess Lipovic is their place, points towards the fact that they are getting closer. They've had Grand Tour success as well in recent years with Jai Hindley and Primož Roglic at last year's Vuelta. Also, the matter of the bikes as well has been important. Specialized already provide the bikes for Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe. Most of the bike is the same apart from the group set. The group set that they ride is SRAM instead of Shimano, which Soudal Quick-Step use at the moment. And I was speaking to some of the people in Specialized Global Team last week, and they were suggesting that they will do whatever they can to keep Remco Evenepoel riding Specialized bikes next year. I mean, the guy just released a new line of shoes before the Tour de France called the Remco Torch. Can't really avoid that one. And also, he was part of this big marketing campaign for the new S-Works Power Evo with mirror saddle that came out just before the Tour de France as well. He was kind of the figurehead for that. They worked very closely with his bike fit as well, particularly for that mountain time trial. So I think, the stars really are aligning for this move to happen, although we've had so many rumours building up to this point, perhaps strongest with Ineos Grenadiers. So, Scott, it's looking like this might actually become a reality fairly soon.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if this deal was actually done beforehand or if this is where we're just seeing like maybe the deal's already been signed, all the terms are done, and we're just seeing them like being released like trickle by trickle. But don't you think there's going to be a problem next year? Because like you've already said it, Florian Lipovic's looking very good, and I'm sure he's a lot cheaper than Remco Evenepoel, but you said a big budget. You've got Jai Hindley in there as well. I'm sure he still has GC ambitions for his own chances. You've got Primož Roglic in there, and then Remco Evenepoel. I mean, and Vlasov, let's not forget, he's a former top 5 finisher in the Tour de France. So it's getting a bit crowded.
Yeah, it is getting very crowded. Roglic as well. We don't really know what's going to happen with Roglic. Talks were of a contract extension at Red Bull earlier in the year. Nothing was ever formally confirmed, and I haven't heard much since. So Lord knows what's happening there. Roglic, of course, wants to try to win the Tour de France or at least make the podium before he retires.
He did a good job this year, didn't he, by attacking suicidally.
No risk, no glory. But he's still got, probably another Grand Tour victory in his legs. Whether that will be at Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe rather or not, we will find out. Don't forget as well, Giulio Pellizzari rode a brilliant Giro d'Italia. He's incredibly young. We don't quite know what his ceiling could possibly be. Jai Hindley, yes, but I think he's somewhat been forced into this luxury domestique role, a bit like Joao Almeida at UAE Team Emirates. He rode the Giro solely in support of Primož Roglic without a Tour de France start this year. Things will need to be sort of sorted out at Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe. Their tactical sort of playbook has been questioned many times during the recent Tour de France and at the Giro d'Italia. So, the pressure will be on. But as far as the team are concerned, we did hear sort of some things from inside the team saying that, nothing has changed in terms of this contract saga, but that's been conflicted by other sources as well. And Jürgen Forey, who's going to be the Quick-Step CEO, he also is saying that, Remco is going to be here next year. So this could all fall through at the last minute. Things like this have happened before. Perhaps riders at Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe will be hearing this and pushing back at this prospect.
You said the budget. They're probably going to be one of those teams that can fund multiple million euro contracts. I'm sure Florian Lipovic wants a bit of a pay rise after that at Tour de France as well.
Well, his contract is also up at the end of this year. So that could also open the door. I have not heard of any sort of rumors about an extension, but I imagine after this Tour de France, his agent will be calling and they'll try to get something in place. Don't break a proven formula. There we go. He's had a great year this year. Imagine he could stay, but the team were very, very pragmatic about Lipovic. He wasn't even supposed to ride the Tour de France at the beginning of the year. It was sort of added in last minute. They wanted to kind of keep him in these 1 week stage races, see how he performed, then put him into a Grand Tour, not necessarily with leadership duties. But as the cards have fallen, he seems to be one of the team's best GC players at the moment. Don't forget as well, they have a very good development team, the Red Bull Rookies team, as well, filled to the brim with strong young talent. I believe with Luke Tuckwell finished on the podium at the Baby Giro. Don't quote me on that one. He was wearing the pink jersey for a lot of that race. And they also have the Enka Auto Ada development team as well for younger riders coming through.
Do you think, you were saying the whole mission is to win the Tour de France? Is Remco Evenepoel that guy?
No. I don't think so.
Not even like, oh, maybe
No,
we don't
no,
know.
no. I can't really give much nuance to my take. I don't think Remco Evenepoel will win a Tour de France. I think we've seen strong enough evidence in the past 2 years to suggest that he is not quite on the level of Tadej Pogacar or Jonas Vingegaard. Evenepoel is now 25. He is only a year and a half younger than Tadej Pogacar. Yeah, and his Grand Tour record is shaky. He's crashed out and had bad off days at many Grand Tours. He's only really had a clean run at 2 Grand Tours, being the Vuelta he won. Yes, he won it. Only when, Roglic crashed out. And last year's Tour de France, he finished in third place, almost 10 minutes behind Tadej Pogacar. Yes, that was off the back of the crash in Italy, Basque Country, I understand. But for me, what I think Evenepoel does provide, which I think has been a sort of untapped gold mine, is the fact that he is a fantastic classics racer. Yes, he's got 2 Liège-Bastogne-Liège victories, but I think one day he could win the Tour of Flanders. I think that he could be right up there in a Milan-San Remo format, in a Flèche Wallonne. He could probably win the Tour of Lombardy. Another world title definitely could be under his belt on the road, as well as, harvesting rainbow jerseys against the clock. I don't see anybody really coming for his story as the best time trialist on the planet. And that, of course, is a lucrative spot to be in as a team. You constantly have that rainbow jersey and your bike winning the World Time Trial Championships. Evenepoel, I just don't think he will win a Tour de France. He could maybe win a Vuelta or a Giro in the years to come, but I do think he's got plenty of monuments in him and potentially a Paris-Nice somewhere down the line.
But we might as well move on. It's not all about Remco Evenepoel. Post-tour blues. Kevin Vauquelin was certainly someone. Oh, no. Well, you wanted French chapter? Let's go to AG2R. But I guess Kevin Vauquelin kind of fits into this part as well.
Yeah, we'll get to Vauquelin because, Ineos have fingers in many pies this year and also, lots to address in terms of what their future could be. But one team that has already somewhat addressed their future is Decathlon, now known as Decathlon Agir Desert. They will switch up their name next year to Decathlon. Let me try to get this one right. CGA. It's a global shippings and logistics company. They're jumping in, and with their support, this team's budget, according to, at least Cycling News and from murmurs I'm hearing elsewhere, that this team's budget will increase to roughly 40 million euros a year. That's not far off the super teams of Ineos, Visma, Lisa Bike, and UAE. We were speaking about the 50 million that Red Bull have to play with. Only 10 million below that will be Decathlon. CGA next year. Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? And with this, there is a big shift in the squad. If you saw Tour de France Unchained, it was documented quite well when Decathlon took on the team. They switched up the CEO of the squad to Dominic Serriez, who has a background in motorsport and rugby. He was head of the French National Motorsport Federation. It's not my realm of expertise. And also the Racing 92 rugby squads. And he sort of, zhuzhed it up like, this like miracle, like Nanny McPhee almost in a business sense, and made it into this, fantastic money-making machine. And he was drafted into the same thing with Decathlon when the sponsor jumped on board. And what was abundantly clear is that he wants to have a more international facing squad. We saw that with a lot of the transfers that came through last year, notably with Sam Bennett. They wanted a sort of, top tier sprinter for 2026. It looks like that is really the goal. Olaf Koy, of course, is the biggest sprinter that links this team. Rumors have been circulating for a while, but really picked up during the Giro, in which Koy won 2 stages, 3 stages. He won a couple of stages, including the one in Rome. But this will soon be backed up by what looks to be a pretty ferocious Dutch sprint train, which, according to sources in the Dutch press, would include Kees Bol, who's currently in XCS Astana, and Dan Holer, who won a time trial at the Giro d'Italia. But you also have to factor in another sprinting card. One of the best sprinters available on this year's market in terms of sort of future prospects, Tobias Lund of Denmark, who is also now linked to Decathlon CGA. If only they had that L'Oreal deal that was on the cards. Decathlon L'Oreal would have just been fantastic. Anyways, Tobias Lund linked to the team. He's out of a contract at Picnic Postinel, strongly sort of rumored to be moving at the end of this year anyway. It's getting quite busy in Picnic, of course, with Onley's prospect picking up, but also Pavel Bittner, who had a strong Tour de France and won a stage of the Vuelta last year. It looks as though the Dane will be moving across, Scott, and this is quite a good prospect. But Lund's results this year have not, he's had a decent Tour de France, but his results this year have not quite been top draw enough to make him the number one sprinter Decathlon.
Yeah, Tobias Lund and Dreisen. No, I definitely think, it would be a good pairing between him and Koy. And I think he's not a pure sprinter, Tobias Lund. He can He's a bit more like a Caden Gross, where he can actually hang on in the more rugged terrain and then do it well. But yeah, no, it's very interesting to see them actually change up. And are they also putting more emphasis into Paul Cesar's now?
Precisely. Yes, part of this big deal and the big increase of budget is because they want to win the Tour de France with Paul Sexas. That's a big goal. Sexas, I think he's still 18 years old, from Lyon, reigning junior individual time trial world champion, became the youngest rider in World Tour history to finish in the top 10 of a World Tour stage race at the Critérium du Dauphiné last month. He looks like an exceptional talent, the real deal, if you will. The team have funneled an awful lot of confidence into this teenager. Yes, he's still a teenager, and imagine having this much pressure on your back. The team is now getting millions and millions for you to win the Tour de France in the future. And this now includes, probably increased R&D alongside Van Rysel, but also further support in the mountains. Matthew Riccatello is a rider who's linked now to the Decathlon CGM CGA next year. The American rider from IPT showed some real great signs on the youth level, was just pipped to the line to win the Tour de l'Avenir when Isaac Del Toro won a couple years back. He was strong last year in Tour de Suisse and also had a decent Vuelta a España, and I'm really excited to see what Riccatello can bring at Decathlon. But there's also a major shift as well in that team. A lot of their French core is rumored to be going out the door. Not just the French core, but also plenty of other riders. Let me list some of the biggest names here. Benoît Cosnefroy, Sam Bennett, Andrea Vendrame, Victor Lafay, Nance Peters, Dries de Bont, Bastien Tranchant, and Geoffrey Bouchard. Looking down this list, Vendrame has won several Grand Tour stages for them whilst at the team. Victor Lafay as well was brought in on a big money deal a couple of years back. Nance Peters has won 2 Grand Tour stages whilst at the team. Dries de Bont was a super combative at the recent Giro, and Bouchard won the 2 mountain classifications for the squad. This is a big sort of exodus of riders leaving the squad. Perhaps a lot of disgruntlement. We know that that's the whole team ambiance has completely shifted. Vincent Lavenue, who ran this team for 20-30 years, is no longer at the helm of this squad in what was quite a nasty divorce between himself and Serriez last year. And sort of that familial vibe that the team used to have that was so well documented seems to have been lost to some extent. Scott, this is, quite a big shift. It looks like Decathlon really trying to internationalize and get closer to these super teams.
Yeah, it certainly is very interesting to see the shift of the team, and we are kind of missing these French teams really going at it. We're normally seeing the French teams being a bit of not really the main contenders in terms of the biggest races, so maybe that's what they're also trying to change as well. But, enough Decathlon AG2R. Another story I want to hear your thoughts about. Lotto Intermarche. That was a big thing that broke during the Tour de France, the merger there. Not really the best time for that news to drop when a Tour de France is happening for the riders and everyone's thinking about their jobs, not just the riders, the backroom staff as well.
Yes, but it's also a good time for people to talk. And
yes, I guess, yeah.
But these talks have been happening for a while. So Lotto and Intermarche. So Intermarche currently in the World Tour. Lotto Pro team will be moving up next year if we follow the UCI promotion relegation cycle. Both have been facing financial difficulties in finding a secondary sponsor. Lotto, for the first time in about 30 years, are actually racing this year without a secondary sponsor. They are just Lotto. Intermarche as well. The deal with Wanty is up at the end of the year, as is their deal with bike sponsors Cube. Cube sponsorship brings in €2 million, but
how much? What? And they give them free bikes. Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
It's important. It's important for the team.
Yeah. Like, wow.
But what is at the core of this is, as well, is the fact that both teams are struggling to find that secondary sponsor, and they're going to try and make it easy for both parties and jump on board. Intermarche, I believe, were currently with a €15 million budget, and Lotto, I think, on a roughly €10-12 million budget. Coming together, they'll bump that up to 18 million, according to rumours in the Belgian press, which would help them. It's becoming more expensive and harder to run these professional teams, as we keep hearing. And, with more folding teams on the horizon, it looks like a real issue. However, this merger would mean that, half of one of the teams will be gutted, essentially. From where we're at right now, Lotto are really pushing this deal. Lotto are the ones pioneering this merger deal, and if it goes through, Lotto would be the World Tour license holders, which means that Intermarche's riders will be sucked up into Lotto as they take the title sponsorship role at that team. Under UCI contract regulations, this means that every rider that currently has an agreed contract with Intermarche will be allowed to search out new contracts, regardless of what they previously had signed. Riders who were previously contracted connected to Lotto, however, would have to respect their deals, I believe. And that's been echoed in Hetlatzer news as well. So, I mean, there are other things at play here in terms of Lotto were running low on team staff anyway. They needed more team staff to come in. Certain people were leaving the squad anyway. I know like quite a few of the big names at Intermarche will move over, including Eike Wiesebeek, who was, a bit of the mastermind behind a lot of the squad's successes over the past couple of years. However, given that riders who had a previously agreed contract will be allowed to search out new deals, that leaves a lot of riders potentially on the market for next year, one of whom is Biniam Girmay. Girmay, I mean, he was one of the hottest properties on the transfer market over the past couple of years, with people trying to sort of buy him out of a deal with Intermarche. He stuck with Intermarche, had a lot of faith with them. They, signed him up as a young rider, really given him faith. He's won all these tour stages and the classics with that squad. He put his faith in the team, has a really, really strong working relationship with them. However, with this merger, it will mean a complete change of dynamic. Half of the team staff will be different. A lot of the riders will be different. And I mean, potentially, he'd have to share team responsibilities with Arnaud Delis, who's a very similar rider on paper and only a little bit younger than him. So this does open up an avenue for Girmay to go elsewhere. XDS Astana has been spoken about. Would be interesting. XDS looks like they're going to be safe next year on the promotion relegation battle. Also, the fact that one spot's now going to be free in the World Tour, that would also keep them extra safe almost. They've got, strong financial backers in XDS/XLab. It's a Chinese carbon fiber manufacturer. When they came on board last year, they announced that they were going to pump in some big financial injections. This could be the evidence of that if they bring Biniam Girmay on board. The team have been good in sprints recently, and, with their fantastic 2025 season, it's quite a strong billboard for riders to come in and also enjoy successes, particularly off the back of what was a great great classic season last year. His old buddy Mike Turnerson now rides for the team, is former lead-out man at Intermarche.
Plus, they've also had a few Eritreans there, Kudus and Henok Maluma.
That's a good point. It's also, it's historically an Italian-speaking team, and has had some English language connections now, with a lot of expertise in sprints, thanks to Mark Renshaw, who's one of the DSs there, and also the Greek sprinting guru who you had on the channel a couple of years back. I will not try to pronounce his name. It is a team with lots of expertise in that field. Being Biniam Girmay is a huge prospect for any team. He holds, media power, unlike many other riders in the peloton. He is an absolute star back home in Eritrea and in, all of the east of Africa and worldwide cycling. I mean, helped, of course, by his recent appearance in Tour de France Unchained on Netflix. And from what I've heard as well, he was, in negotiations with many, many people. I know for a fact Specialized tried very, very hard to get him on board, whether that be with Soudal Quickstep or with Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe. So I reckon, options will be on the table if he does decide to move. But with him being sort of, pushed off a employment cliff almost in the terms of his contract could be broken, whatever, he's going to move to a completely new workplace he wasn't expecting. Things might be quite hectic for him over the next couple months.
Quick Step, how close was the connection there? Because obviously Belgian team, he's coming from Belgian team, very strong family man as well. His brother is in the development team of Intermarche, so maybe that's something you would look towards as well. We've seen this before, Peter Sagan taking his brother, dragging him along his whole career, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the Quick Step, from what I know, is that they did try to get him, and he would fit there very well. He's quite similar to Paul Magnier, but who's just signed an extension. But Quick Step, if they lose Evenepoel, this could be, their chance to really fill that gap. But as we're going to, I might as well just throw it in now. Quick Step are really bolstering their classics lineup. Jasper Stuyver's linked to the team. That link came through a couple months back from DH. Don't quite know if it's still quite in the same strength for that rumor, but they've also, wrangled in Dylan van Baarle, who went on a podcast to talk about leaving Visma and being, very confident of the fact that he will break his contract. But nevertheless, they are building up quite the classics core, and I do think Girmay would fit into that quite well. Historically, strong sprinting team, but how would he share duties with Tim Merlier or a prospective Quickstep signing, Alberto Dainese, who's also linked to Quickstep?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's definitely some overlaps there. I think Astana, if he doesn't stay with the Lotto Intermarche team, Astana, he would fit very well into that team and maybe has a bit more decision of what races he can go to, which races he can lead as well. I mean, his agent, isn't he Italian as well? Alex Carrera?
Alex Carrera seems to, be tied to so many people these days.
Yeah, but Ineos Grenadiers, Ewan.
Yes, Ineos Grenadiers. This one's a fascinating one, isn't it? Ineos Grenadiers, I mean, as we saw at the beginning of the Tour de France, will be, entering this financial and sponsorship partnership with Total Energies, one of the world's biggest petrochemical and oil companies. In fact, it pollutes 1% of the world's carbon dioxide emissions per year. They're one of the most emitting corporations in the world. They're part of the big oil, This is a big deal. They are a big, big company with turnover in the, biblical figures. They want to get on board with Total. They're now on the jersey, but not technically on they can't become co-title sponsors yet, yada, yada, yada. You can't sponsor two teams at the same time because they still have the deal with Total, the pro team. Anyways, looks like they're going to come on board. This might mean huge changes at Ineos. Rumours also circulating about the fact that the team's license might change to a French one next year. As part of that, a hell of a lot of French riders are linked to Ineos Grenadiers going forward, and that includes Kevin Vauquelin, who is their sort of, headline transfer link at the moment. He's been a long-term target for them, but also for other teams. Visma Leasebike had talks to them last year. Little Trek as well were involved. There were also talks with Decathlon CGM CGA. But Kevin Vauquelin was taking intensive English classes, getting ready to go international, as the French press reported a couple months back. And at the beginning of this race, Ciro Sconimila Gazzetta considered this a done deal. However, L'Équipe, in the final week of the race, have said that Vauquelin is actually, a little bit uncertain about this whole move. On a moral front, with a lot of, what's happening in the moment circling around Ineos Grenadiers, talks of David Rosman, the disgraced masseur who has, the Irish Independent surfaces, Paul Kimmage wrote about it, murky waters legally, but David Rosman worked in the team, may have some links to some questionable things in the past. He was expelled from the Tour de France. The team don't want to talk to the press about it. I'll leave it at that. Kevin Vauquelin has that weighing on his mind, and he is now getting, cold feet about this Ineos deal, also to sort of the moral front about the deal with Total and what that could mean. So it's looking like the door might swing wide open. Now, L'Équipe also reporting that Arkea B&B are now somehow hopeful that they will have enough money to survive next year. Perhaps they're enjoying what's been a great Tour de France for them, and they now think that they're going to be alive. Hubert, who runs the team, now seems to believe that they might have a lifeline there, and if that isn't the cards, L'Équipe are reporting that Vauquelin would stay. So, I mean, it's very uncertain whether Arkea still exists or not. It's been long sort of reported that this team has financial issues, and there's a lot of people on their payroll that they need to stay afloat. They're probably going to get relegated, despite, their good Tour de France. That Ineos, to the cold feet, could it lead to anything? We'll find out.
Wouldn't AG2R make a lot of sense for him if they're trying to grooming Sirsax into this? Okay, wrong choice of words. But
wrong choice of words. He's 18. But yes, I know what you mean. I think it would. I think Vauquelin could be a Richie Port style rider, winning the stage races and then, doing okay at Grand Tours. I think that could be his future. I mean, naturally, then Ineos could be the choice for him. But that would make the most sense. And I think the team would quite like to bring him on board. He's a Norman rider. Decathlon have a foothold in the north of France. French teams are, very localized. But Ineos, with this whole French thing, probably will be really motivated to bring him on board. He is, your typical Ineos signing, a bit like, Taman Arensman, and he just won 2 stages of the Tour. But, I mean, on that note, they're also linked to other French riders. Let's bring that one up. They're also linked to Benoit Cosnefroy, who will be leaving Decathlon CGM CGA at the end of this year, we believe. Also, Dorian Gaudin, who, recently crowned French champion with a questionable celebration. He is the hottest property, apparently, on the transfer market. Everyone's linked to him. Groupama linked to him, and EF and Ineos. Everyone wants a slice of the Gaudin cake, and I don't blame them. He is a brilliant all-rounder who's really proven his strength over the past couple of years. But he can also be a brilliant hoover for World Tour points. So XCS Astana, hit him up.
I mean, we might as well finish with one of the more funny stories. Well, it's not funny, but it's funny that a guy who is a YouTuber has a team and is now on the verge of signing Dylan Groenewegen.
Yes. So Dylan Groenewegen is reported to be leaving Jaco Alula. This was reported before the Tour de France. And then rumors emerged of a link to the Titema Unibet Rockets, and another long team name, ran by Bas Titema, a former sort of, development writer who then ended up becoming a YouTuber and somehow managed a team. The team have really been growing in strength. They've had a great year this year. Lukas Kubiš has really been their flag bearer, the Slovak champion, now double Slovak champion. They rode Roubaix. They have been in quite a few high-profile races. And this link now to Dylan Groenewegen would be, the real move forward for that squad. Obviously wanting to succeed in the sprints, and also the fact that they ride under a French license, this also gives more extra emphasis to getting invites to French races. And also, Scott, there's a little bit of a strange full circle moment here, because I remember back in 2019, Bas Titema released an EDM song titled Dylan Groenewegen, which went Dylan, 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 Dylan Groenewegen. And now that he might actually have him on his books, will that now become the team's anthem? Many questions still to be answered.
Ewan, do you think this is a good transfer for Bas Titema and his team to take them forward, or is Dylan Groenewegen on his way out and this is just going to be a very expensive paperweight?
I mean, it certainly looks like he's on his way out. He didn't even crack the top 10 of this year's Tour de France. Best finish was 13th at Dunkirk. This is a man who's won several stages of the Tour de France before. He's only got a couple wins to his name this year at the Tour of Slovenia and Tour of Hungary. Real kind of measly couple of results at World Tour stage races as well early this year. Yes, I do think this maybe isn't the most, financially sound move for Titema to do, but it will help them raise their profile a little bit more. I think that's also what it's about. This team is clever with their marketing, and to have someone as big as him on that squad is good. They've been crafty with their signings in the past of, roping in World Tour talent that was somewhat neglected. I'm thinking of Stockball and other riders who have also, fallen through the cracks a little bit, a bit like the SWAT team over in Italy, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, it's no harm for their image. They're still relatively unknown. If you didn't know who Titema was, you might not even know who the team is.
Go on then. I mean, the SWAT club or whatever they call the gravel team that would be very successful as kind of like a bounce back team for a few riders. Esbjørn Helm also bounced back to the World Tour after leaving Trek Segafredo, I think they were called at that point. And then obviously now he rides with Jaco Alula, but they also are currently in hold of the surprise amateur champion, apparently, even though the guy has a lot of experience already in the pro ranks.
Yeah, he was in the World Tour for a bit. But he used to ride for Q36.5, more on them in a bit as well. But yeah, it's looking like Filippo Conchan, the new Italian champion, will be moving to Jaco Alula. This is a very, very strong rumor, concurred by several sources, Cicloweb as well, the Italian. This makes sense. They have quite a big Italian contingent at that squad, which looks like it's only going to grow. Alessandro Corvi, a stage winner of the Giro a couple of years back, he's also linked to this team from UAE Team Emirates. However, they will be losing an Italian in the form of Pippo Zana, the former Italian champion. He's linked to Ineos Grenadiers Total, Ineos Grenadiers, whatever they're going to be known as.
Yeah, one in, one out, apparently. Or two in.
That's the thing, you can't have too many Italian champions on one team. But what I'm quite glad of is that, we're actually going to get a good Italian national champions jersey, because what I've seen from Concha's one at SWAT, it is an abomination of many sorts. So, Map, sort them out.
I mean, Uno X signing Norwegians and Danes. I mean,
yeah, and they're, signing up these freaks from other sports as well with just insane VO2 maxes, because that always works, doesn't it? They're not breaking their transfer policy in the men's team of roping in international talent. It seems like it's staying in Scandinavia. I'd like to see a non-Scandinavian rider go to that team, but I guess just linguistically, everyone's speaking Norwegian. It's probably quite hard to access that team in terms of as a foreigner. But the women's team is very international, which I've always found a little bit odd, that the men's team has always remained so starkly Scandinavian.
Well, no Swedes, unfortunately.
No Swedes, but who is there to buy from Sweden?
Jakob Sundqvist, that's the only one I can think of.
Oh yeah, I mean he's now signed up to Little Trek senior team. He could have been a big prospect in the market, but he's now off of the market.
I mean, with all the turmoil with Jonas Vingegaard as well, do you think Groenewegen are going to try and sign him away from his selection?
Oh God, no, 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 no. I know the Danish press have been sort of pushing this Van leaving Visma thing, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
If anything, Visma need to sign another big GC name. Fill that Roglic void with Roglic. Bring him back.
I mean, he's probably a lot cheaper now than he was back then.
Yeah, yeah, they've made their money. That's a good that would be a good financial move. You know, he's only decreased in cost. Visma as well. They're bringing in some new talent. Along those lines, Vila Flits are reporting that Bruno Marai is linked to the team, and also a bit of a surprise echoed by Hetlatsa News and Tutabici is that Pippo Fiorelli will be moving across. Interesting signing. I think that's a bit in the sort of Alex Zingler frame and Christophe Laporte frame in terms of riders with really good results, not on the best team, but could be really good. I think, Fiorelli could be great, but he's like 30 years old. How much shelf life does he have at that top grade? But, I'm intrigued to see how it's going to go. Fiorelli, I think, is a great rider. We've seen him animate the Giro over the past couple of years. This move could really, really do him some good. Also, Timo Kielik, according to Hetlatsa News, has also received a verbal deal with Visma Lease Bike. He's a strong sprinter. Was an Alpecin de Koenig's development team, now on the World Tour team. Yeah, really strong. It's just a lot of space to sprint. Like, there's a lot of competition for sprinters at Alpecin, so it makes sense for him to move elsewhere. With Coy out the door, that opens up an opportunity for a new sprinter. But, he could bring them another sprinting card.
Interesting signings. Obviously, they have that very strong development team as well, where there's going to be some wonder kids coming through any minute.
Oh, man, Brannan, he's already here.
Yeah,
he's
there you
a
go.
sprinter.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot about him. Yeah, he's a great sprinter. Could probably end up on their tour squad next year if he plays his cards right.
I mean, they're probably not winning the tour based on what happened this year. But is there anyone else that we've kind of gone past? I mean, you also are saying Q36.5 now with this prospective World Tour spot that they might be buying with their bucket load of billionaire backings. Obviously, they're going to try and strengthen their team for sure, no?
Yes. So due to the Lotto and Intermarche merger, this will leave a World Tour license on the table. Precedent and UCI rules suggest this will be given to the highest bidder. In the past, this has happened. In 2015, there was a merger between Cannondale and Garmin Sharp. That opened up a new World Tour spot. That was hoovered up by IAM Pro Cycling, YAM Pro Cycling, who bid for the license there. In 2020, ISUN merged with Katusha. That opened up they ended up getting the World Tour license, opened up a bunch of new World Tour deals to be done there. And also Intermarche, when they moved up, they actually soaked up what was Q36.5's World Tour license, which is somewhat ironic. But it will go to the biggest bidder. And at the moment, we're hearing that could be Q36.5. Cofidis are also hoping that they can get that one, even though they're looking at being relegated at the moment. But they have a bunch of big blue chip backers and also a billionaire backer in the form of Ivan Glasenberg, who owns the majority share of Pinarello, I believe, and also the team. Doug Ryder's been very good at getting sort of big name backers in the past. They have sort of strong tied their charity work as well in Africa. Not quite as much as they did before, but when the team with Dimension Data, they moved up from MTN to the World Tour quite quickly with that financial backing. Looks like the same could be happening here, but they are bringing reinforcements to back up that status. Looking at Fred Wright is the biggest British name. He'll be leaving Bahrain at the end of the year. That's almost certain to be on the table. Also, Chris Harper, who won the Colle della Finestra stage at the Giro, he's linked to Q36.5, as is Andrea Murtaso, who's been a solid climber at Alpecin de Koenig over the past couple of years. Probably their best climber since Jay Vine left, but it's Alpecin. Does that really mean much? Quinten Hermans is also linked to the team. There was a previous rumor that Yves Lampart was going to move over to Q36.5, but he has now signed an extension with Soudal, so he'll be sticking with Quickstep in the coming years. And Scott, I mean, talking about Fred Wright leaving Bahrain, there's quite a lot of change there. They will be losing Fred Wright as well as Jack Haig. No rumours on the table for Jack Haig at the moment. He is out of contract in quite desperate need of one. His results have really been slumping since his, Indian summer of 2021 when he podiumed the Vuelta and had a couple of great results that year. Yeah, he needs a contract, but they're bringing in Attila Valter from Visma Lease Bike, the Hungarian champion who has been a really solid domestique of that team, lived up to the expectations that many Central Europeans would have had of him. He's linked to Bahrain, as is Alex Zegaard, who's a really, really interesting prospect at Lotto at the moment. Did well at the Benelux Tour a couple of years back, Renewy Tour, Bing Bong Tour. Acre Tour, whatever it's called nowadays. Had a really good showing there. It's been really good in the youth scene, came close to winning the World Championships in the under-23 category in both the road race and the TT. He is rumored to be moving over to Bahrain, I think in a deal that could be quite similar to Lenny Martinez in the fact that they're going to try and pump him into a GC talent. But Zeegaard is so multifaceted, he could really be any rider he wants to be. That sounds very, mystical, but it is true. He's only 22. Yeah, he's only 22. Come on.
Yeah, no, they definitely have a very youthful team now, also with Antonio Tiberi, who they also kind of took in as mainly a TT rider and then sculpt him in.
That as well. They're quite similar in that mold. Yeah, they're very similar. Similar ages as well between.
Yeah.
I hadn't put two and two together. But if they can do that with him, I think Zeegaard could be a quite similar prospect.
So yeah, that trident would be quite good.
Zeegaard, Martinez, and the other one, the cat killer. Tiberi, yes, all three of them.
Killer, the sniper.
All three of them coming through the ranks at the same time. They're all fairly similar ages in the early to mid-20s. But I mean, also whilst talking about young riders from Italy in terms of Tiberi, also Francesco Bussato, who had a really great opening stage of the Giro back in Albania. He is linked to Alpecin de Koning, which I think is a really fitting deal for him. One of the riders that might be leaving Intermarche, who's currently contracted to Bussato. Really good sort of classics prospect. Won a lot of the under-23 monuments and sort of one-day races. A lot of promise there. I know Patrick's been talking him up a lot on the channel, so
he loves him.
he'll be happy to hear that one. But also out of the door at Alpecin in terms of leaving, Gianni Vermees linked to Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe, the former gravel world champion. That'll be a big loss in the classics.
Yeah, for sure. See how they fill that hole. Is there anyone else that we haven't spoken about that you're kind of... We've been very thorough here.
I mean, yeah, but there's a lot coming, and I know the floodgates open in 1 week's time, but
yeah.
I mean, Sam Welsford moving to Ineos, that's one, that looks to be pretty much done on a 2-year deal, leaving Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe, trying to fill that hole that Caleb Ewan left. Other riders that are on the move, Roger Adria from Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe had a really good end to last year with the team. The young Spaniard will be moving to Movistar, also joining him. Juan P. Lopez, we believe, also be moving to Movistar. Those are the ones that can come to my mind, Scott. But all will become more clear in the weeks to come.
Yeah, we'll certainly wait and see what happens, because that's going to be very interesting. But thank you, Ewan, for joining. Special guest appearance. Obviously, Cyclist Magazine, that's going to be available down below in the description. If you're listening or watching, I mean, if you're listening right now, you just showed the magazine. Very good magazine. So I really do recommend it, not just because I was in it with Ewan. But anyways, with that, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. And we'll see Ewan back for sure at one sometime.